Hello, everybody, it's me, Fengling here, and today I'm going to talk about how to tell a very good and interesting story in just about 60 seconds. 1. Why does Jenny Hoyos believe that telling a good story does not have to take a long time? Well, because when you keep the story short, then it would make it easier for the listeners to actually focus on the main points, on the questions, on the obstacles that you have to go through to try and get the answer of that question, and then eventually getting the answer. So this is especially useful when you try to make a story to post on social media. Why is the beginning of a story so important? Well, the beginning needs to be interesting so that the listeners would want to keep listening. So if the audiences are not interested from the beginning, then why would they even stay? So the first few seconds could actually determine whether or not the story succeeds in getting attention. What makes a story interesting enough to keep an audience's attention? Well, an interesting story would usually require a clear situation, a problem, some kind of obstacles or change of development, and eventually an answer to the problem. So personal experiences could make the story more authentic and relatable, and good storytelling would create curiosity and make the listeners want to investigate more and then eventually stay and listen to that story. Why does Jenny emphasize the importance of keeping a story simple? Well, a simple story is easier for the audience to listen to and understand and remember and share. So when there are too many small details, then people would not be so interested and they would not want to stay anymore. So keeping only the most important and simple information is one of the qualities to actually form an interesting story. How can conflict or a problem make a short story more engaging? Well, a problem would give the story a sense of direction, and then even a small conflict could make an ordinary audience and make an ordinary experience seem much more interesting. Let me give an example. Usually then you would just if you were trying to tell a story about reading a book and how interesting that book is, if you just read the book, start reading it and end up reading it and telling your thoughts, that it would not be so interesting. But maybe if there was some conflict, you couldn't understand some things about that book, or maybe you didn't know the language, or maybe some things that interrupted you in telling your story, no, in your story, then it would make the story more interesting. How can personal experiences make short stories become more powerful? Personal experiences would make the story become more authentic because it is based on real emotions and real situations, and even a simple experience could actually become interesting if you actually ask the questions, create conflicts, and get to the answer. So this would, and if there are some simple details, that it could actually make the story become really interesting and easy to memorize. Do you think a short story can be more powerful than a long one? Why or why not? Well, I think I have already answered this question, since I have already said that short stories with simple details would make the audiences more they would want to listen to that story more because it would not be so complicated and also easy to understand and memorize. So a well-told short story could create a strong memory and emotions in just some seconds. So although long stories are sometimes useful and sometimes stories are just long because there are so many details, important details, but I think that still short stories would be better. What personal experience could you turn into a story in less than 60 seconds? Less than 60 seconds. Okay, so I think I've already told you about the example of reading a book, but maybe I've just thought of another one, which is like my first time of making an English video like this one right now. So like my first time was actually pretty hard because like I didn't know what to say. I was so shy. I didn't know if like I could post this or not, or maybe what if my videos were seen by my friends and then I would get humiliated or stuff. And then like I had a lot of conflict, and eventually I just like built up my courage and then just made a video. And then like from that first video to like this video, then it could be like nearly 100 videos already. So I think that I've made progress. Yes. After watching this talk, what would you change about the way that you tell stories? Well, I think that maybe I could try to make my stories like clearer and shorter so that the listeners could actually understand and like memorize a little bit without having to like think and dig too much into that story and details. So maybe I could start with something interesting, like how I started on my YouTube channel, and then maybe I could like keep on building with that like first details, and then I could create like a very interesting story. Well, thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!